Hello and welcome back to Logical Magic Examining Esoterica. Okay, guys, today's topic is about manifestation and using affirmations for manifestation. We're going to be teaching some manifestation techniques. I spent about the last 3 years on YouTube with various pick-a-cards and then here on the podcast doing some episodes about how to heal your internal world. It's for people who have various forms of trauma disorder, because I have a trauma disorder, I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder. I also have an anxiety disorder. And in order to manifest fully, we have to heal that inner world because it's a blocking energy. It's a rigid structure. The idea of something being out of order or disordered can be brought into order through various techniques. And that's a lot of the work that I've been doing for the last few years. But I'm really excited because having healed all of that, having the management techniques in place that take care of any forms of stress response, emotional regulation issue, dealing with anxiety, I can now move forward into teaching more about manifestation. And like I said, it's something having to do with it's called psych spirituality, which is a form of spirituality that is informed by psychology. So it works both with known science about behavioral sciences and then also with the concept that there is more to this world than we can see, and reaching for your higher self and reaching for your connection to your higher self, the part of you unaffected by trauma. And that's really what we're talking about. Your authentic self, your higher self, the part of you that is sometimes occluded or sometimes blocked from being your authentic self through the different wounds that we can incur through our childhood experience, through bad relationships, through just the world. I live in California. This is actually really genuinely going to be a slightly shorter episode because I've been without power on and off for the last week. And it was making me laugh because in terms of manifestation, I had been reading a lot of Henry David Thoreau's work, and he's not a lot of fun to read. He's a slog. If you're interested in transcendentalism and existentialism, it's often better to read the condensed ideas and theories of a particular person than to try and slog through their work, because so many of them actually were writing at a completely different time. So I actually like Henry David Thoreau, but I completely own that reading Walden is something that it is something to study. Few people would be doing it in order for, just for enjoyment. And so it was making me laugh because he, of course, withdrew to the woods for about 3 years of his life and lived a very simplified life. And I kept getting these cards in my Oracle deck about simplify your life. And that is one of the ways to heal, by the way, is paring your life down to the basics so that you can confront the inner world, so that you can heal the inner world. But it doesn't mean you have to stay there. And it does mean that it's kind of a way of cleaning your mental closets to simplify your life, to unplug, to let go of the things that no longer serve you so that you can make room for the things that do. So I've done a lot of work here on the podcast. You can look back through all of the episodes. There's all the different ways to confront that inner world. But today we are talking about using affirmations for manifestation. And it will work for anybody, but it's going to be particularly good for people who suffer from anxiety, which can be one of the most blocking energies that we have. So I'm going to tell you how to take care of your anxiety first and then work with your affirmations for manifestation. But before we get into that, let's do the housekeeping. You can find me at therisingmoon.com exclusively. That's the only way to find me. It's the only way to book me. I will never approach you trying to sell you anything. We all have scammers who impersonate us, who do that, particularly on the social media platforms. So it's always the way to, separate the wheat from the chaff, as it were, is that the real people don't cold call you, as Jacob would say, Jacob, who does podcasts with me on a fairly regular basis. Let's start talking about what an affirmation is. It's about reprogramming your subconscious mind. And we work with them when we're trying to overcome a punishing inner dialogue sometimes, particularly for trauma survivors or abuse survivors. Your inner voice, the way you approach things, is usually something that is imposed upon you, sometimes by punishing caretakers. If you really want to go into the nitty-gritty, do some research, get more information on it, look at the trauma results of narcissistic parents, and you'll find people pleaser, anxiety, being afraid to try, being afraid to make mistakes, being overly invested in making other people happy because it was the only thing that made you safe, that kind of thing. So whatever your growing up experience was, whatever your relationship experience, whatever your academic experience, because bullying can cause these problems as well, there is information out there to help you identify the things that might be blocking your manifestation. And I really do urge people to go and do some research on that. The more you know, awareness is the way to free yourself from disorder in most cases. Being aware of when you're going into a disordered thinking pattern, like an anxious one, where you imagine the worst case scenario. And as I'm always saying, if it ends in a question mark, it is not your intuition, it is your anxiety. Your intuition is declarative. It brings you information to act upon. It will not frighten you. If you are scared, if you are anxious, the things that you are thinking, that's not your intuition. It's not your intuition. It's a form of, it can be a spirit attachment, but it is also just a form of cyclical thinking that we can get into that, again, blocks our manifestations. So first we work with, what do you do when you're feeling afraid, or when you're feeling angry, or when you're feeling anything that is in a more of a negative energy? What you want to do is stop and be aware of it. I am feeling this emotion. I'm feeling this emotion, and I don't make big decisions and I don't undertake big actions when I'm feeling this. Instead, I take care of that emotion. And you don't ever want to use an affirmation to squash it, which is a mistake a lot of people make. Because in the law of attraction, which does work, it just leaves out the part where we have to heal our stuff. We have to heal our stuff, which constitutes our blocking energy, before we're able to manifest. And like I said, I really might have manifested the life of living in a wood cabin here for a couple of weeks, because the power has been going on and off quite a bit in Southern California. And I'm not in one of the areas that has had active fires, and may that continue. But it sure did make me simplify my life a great deal. When you have an anxious response, the first thing you want to stop is, remember, this is my anxiety brain. This is a part of my fear mind speaking. And you want to be really kind to it. You want to be kind to it. Talk to yourself almost like you're talking to a little kid who's in your care, because in a lot of ways you are. And that's the inner child healing concept, or I like to call it formative damage. It doesn't mean that there's a little, immature child inside of you that's dictating things. It just means that your emotional response system was programmed into you at a formative stage in your life. And unless you take steps to address it, you will perpetuate it. And so that is why when you have an anxious feeling, the first thing you want to do is commit to not doing things that are definitive. It's not the time to send that email. It's not the time to send that text. It's not the time to do spell work, and it's not the time to sit down and meditate. It is, however, the time to take charge of your inner dialogue and to speak to it kindly. Hey, I know you're feeling anxious, but you have a really great track record of figuring everything out. Remember all the times you thought the absolute worst would happen, but it didn't, did it? It worked out okay. And you didn't worry yourself into a solution. The solution came to you through your intuition that then had to battle all of that anxiety. So that's what you do. When you're angry, you can be like, hey, you're really frustrated in there. And can you use third person terminology or first person? It does not matter. It doesn't matter. Whatever you are comfortable with. I have a client who always refers to herself by her first name when she's working with the soothing techniques that we're talking about. So first you acknowledge and soothe, and then you move towards the manifestation affirmations. And that can be, keep it simple. Anything that flows in a cadence is going to be the easiest thing to do. And another thing I teach my clients is, quite frequently, when you're intuitive or you're empathic, you're picking up the energy around you. So when there's a lot going on in the world, you might be picking up on other people's fear. If you're waking up in the middle of the night and your heart's racing and it feels like somebody's got their hand around your throat, the first thing you want to acknowledge is, oh gosh, you're frightened right now, but it's going to be okay. And that's the thing that you start telling yourself. And if your brain starts trying to question that, but what if this, what if that, what if that? What do you tell yourself? My intuition does not end in question marks. You are just my anxiety brain, and it's okay. It's okay. It's all right that you're frightened. You've had sometimes a frightening life, but you're the one in charge now. And that is how you talk to yourself to soothe. Soothe yourself, and then you start programming in the positive affirmations. It can be, I am healthier every day. I am happier every day. I grow wealthier every day. I'm more successful every day. I am stronger every day. And then you start repeating that in a loop. And if that's not what you're trying to manifest, that's okay. Have it be what it's about for you. I look younger every day. I lose weight every day. I get richer every day. Whatever it might be. And you want to continue it with an action verb is always a good idea. It genuinely is. It perpetuates the energy going forward. I know there's a lot of talk out there about never using a future tense and never using the past tense. It doesn't actually matter. People say the universe does not understand time. The universe understands time. We don't. We don't. So the people who are saying, hey, you have to use the present tense, is they don't really understand the flow of time either, their place within it. And so that's what they have to do for their manifestations, but it's not necessary. It won't harm anything, but it's not necessary. So if you want to, for instance, manifest a new home, what you might say after the soothing of what's going to happen, and you're going to figure it out. I believe in you. You're going to figure it out. And that's what you start saying when you get really frightened. I believe in you. You're going to figure it out. And then you move to, I will have a new home. It will be by the sea. It will be, and you start to add in the details. But I need you to hear something on what we're talking about with visualization, affirmation, and then leading to manifestation, is you want to leave the details of things fuzzy just a little bit. You don't want to, I want to live at 1, 2, 3, 6, 7 Maple Leaf. You don't want to do that because it makes it rearranging the universe takes a lot of energy. If you set your sights on one very specific thing, then a lot of different moving parts have to make that possible. So it helps better to, what if you do really like 1, 2, 3, 6, 7 Maple Leaf Lane? Then what you would want to say, a house like the one that you're thinking about, a relationship like the one that you're envisioning. Anything is, if you leave it a little bit open-ended, it comes to you more quickly. And to remember that the idea that our thoughts create our reality is true. Now, it is sometimes our perception of a situation. For instance, in a healing journey, when people have had a lot of trauma, they have to go through something called the victim stage, where they recognize the ways in which something happening to them was unfair. And then they get greater perspective. First, you have to start from the interior view, which is a very narrow perspective of why this happened to me. And then you have to go to the greater perspective, the macro view, to step outside of your ego-driven vision of something. And it's not an insult. It just means that we see things first from our perspective, and we heal when we gain greater perspective, when we're able to step outside of our particular view. And the example I can use for that is the one that I've used before, and I will again. It doesn't matter what my childhood was and how I think and feel now, but it matters in the things that I teach people to do. I had a really, really traumatic childhood. I had exceptionally abusive parents. It was just a weird situation where two narcissists married. They had both been only children. They lived in a time when a lot of how your personality was formed was not understood. There's a lot that goes into it. And I had to heal from all of that. But when at first it was like, how could they? And then as I got better and I got better, I looked at their parents, I looked at the world that they lived in, I looked at the fact that they didn't even have knowledge that would help them cope with, because remember, narcissism is a poor coping tool. We have to release the idea that when we talk about somebody being a narcissist or somebody having a personality disorder, that don't make that synonymous with being a bad person. It's not. It can mean they're very difficult to interact with, but it is just evidence of their own psychological wounds that they have not healed and the poor coping tools that they put together. To manifest the life that you want, you put together healthy coping tools, and that will free you from a lot of the poor ones that we accumulate, which one of the poor ones that we accumulate with an anxiety disorder, or if you're prone to anxiety, is worrying and worrying and worrying with dread, and wanting to get something over with so much. Just let it get here and let it be over. Instead, you just talk to yourself about, it'll be fine, I'll figure it out, I'm going to trust my ability to guide myself through. And the other part of gaining greater perspective is when we're going through that victim stage to heal, is to remember that the idea that our struggles are lessons is true. It doesn't mean, I've talked about this before, the divine does not do things like burn down your house. Not everything happens for a reason, but everything that happens contains a lesson. And the greater world, if we're dealing with a challenged environment, which we are right now in the greater world, California has just had a lot of fires, the divine didn't do that. but the people who lost everything may gain perspective on what stuff means to them in their own life. My childhood home was first lost in a flood, and then a part of it again in a fire like 7 years later. So I had that as part of my formative experience, was losing everything. And it did help me in not being overly attached to stuff. But when we say to somebody who's lost everything, hey, stuff is replaceable, they have to go through their grieving stage of the recognizing that something unfair has happened to you, which is also called the victim stage, which is not about being a victim. It's about recognizing the pain within and feeling as if you have been treated unfairly. And then once you talk yourself through that, once you are like, yeah, but there's a lot of people who have lost so much, and I am lucky to have gotten away with my life. Many people died, and you start to gain the greater perspective, but don't force it. Let yourself process your negative feelings, including emotional release of them, which let yourself cry when you're upset. Trauma disorder survivors often repress their emotions. They hide their emotions, they hide their feelings, and it represses their ability to manifest. So that is one of the reasons that you want to heal that inner world through encouragement and expression, and then you will be able to manifest. In the affirmations department, you want to start talking to yourself about admiring yourself. I admire you. You've been through a lot. You always keep going. You're so strong. This is how you start talking to yourself, and it reprograms your subconscious mind to have greater faith in your abilities. When you have greater faith in your abilities, you can manifest whatever you want. So we want to work first with recognition, then soothing, and then moving into affirmations to manifest. And is the idea that a repeated thought about something positive will open you up to positive energy true? It is true. It is true. If you believe that good things can come to you, you are more likely to recognize them when they do. If you think everything's always going to be crap, then no matter what comes to you, it can't make you happy, because you've already predetermined how you will feel about something. Cynicism is not a good choice. It's difficult because we have to recognize that in this world, not everybody makes the same choices. We all have a divine soul, but not everybody is going to be interested in the higher self concepts. Not everyone is going to try and pursue the idea of, there is a part of me that was formed in trauma, and I would like to experience ego death so that I can become the best version of myself that I can be. And words like ego death and releasing a former version of yourself, you just evolve into who you are. If that person's never fully gone, they've just grown into a different form. And you'll still have the memories, but the feelings, the negative emotions quite frequently attached to the past will change. When I talk about my childhood, there was a part of me that's incredibly glad that I had so many challenges, because it formed me into who I am. And who I am gave me access to gifts that can help others and can help me. And it's not all bad. And I'm from a long line of teachers. It gave me the ability to teach people about how to heal trauma from a spiritual standpoint. But then also part of the reason it was so important for it to happen was that only people who understand how it really feels can coach you through it. When it's just theory, observational theory, it doesn't have the very key component to helping people heal any form of emotionally disordered thinking. They don't know how it feels. So they don't know how to help people soothe their way through a difficult feeling. In meditation, we learn to coexist with our negative emotions or our challenging emotions, where we just kind of note it and it's like, I am feeling this. But your logical brain, in the heart and the head battle, you always choose the head to help with your negative emotions, but it's never shaming, it's always encouraging, it's always loving. You can combine the two. It doesn't have to be cut and dried or full of emotions. You can find that balance between in how you talk to yourself. Your affirmations need to have a cadence to them. They need to have a emotional connotation that is positive, loving, and encouraging towards self. And you can love the heck out of yourself and not think you're perfect. Part of the idea of trying to evolve towards because if you're manifesting something, then if you're saying you're perfect, then no more should come to you because it's perfect, right? So perfection is not the goal. And we don't need to think we're perfect to love ourselves. We love others despite the ways in which it's like, that's just how they act. This person's stubborn, that person's flighty, this person's irresponsible, but they have these positive attributes as well that make us love and accept them. And that's how we approach self-love as well. You may be struggling with things for the entirety of your life. I do have an anxiety disorder. I do not manage it with medication. I've been very, very lucky and fortunate to be able to get a lot of messages about how to manage it for myself, and it works for other people as well. But it doesn't make me, I have to recognize it to in any way guide it. Understanding that I can be prone to frustration, I can be prone to impatience, I can be prone to anger, I can be prone to fear. Everybody can be. We get prone to envy. These are all natural parts of a human being. And the problem that we run into when we're trying to manifest is if you feel guilt or shame over simply being a human being, then it is unlikely that you will be able to make progress and achieve what you wish to with manifestation. First, you have to recognize, and it is called ego death, where you step outside of yourself. And I can be a really difficult person. I'm the first person to recognize that. I've been working on trying to be a more go with the flow person for years and years at this particular point. And as the last week has proven, as the lights went on and off, and I had to have battery packs around to make sure that I could still do my work and a couple of other things, it helped me learn to be in flow. And you want to be in flow to manifest. So that's another thing that you can actually work with as an affirmation. I'm in flow with the energy of the universe, bringing me everything I need. I'm in flow with the energy of the universe, bringing me everything that I need. I'm in flow with the energy of the universe, bringing me everything that I need. And you want it to have a good cadence. You can work with rhyming, and then you repeat it over and over in your head. Particularly when you wake up in the morning, that is a time where you're kind of setting the intention for your day. Affirmations set your intentions. Intentions are the heart of both magic and manifestation. Now, not everybody wants to do magic, which involves things like, calling out to particular deities or deities. In England, they pronounce it one way, and in the States, they pronounce it a different way. So that's why I have a tendency to do that. It involves a more ritualistic approach when you're doing magic. I'm technically a high priestess in celestial and angelic magic. I just got done with a year of working with Kali. I'm now moving towards working with the feminine divine in a more positive aspect. Because why did I want to work with Kali? Kali is the goddess of death and time and birth, and also destruction in the Hindu religion. In celestial and angelic magic, we work with the figureheads from Buddhism, from Hinduism, from Christianity as well, and from any other place that you wish to. I don't personally work with Egyptology. I've covered that before. You will know what you have an affinity for, what calls out to you. So I'm moving towards working more with the feminine divine for the birth of new and exciting and basically innocent things. And that's not to say that like there's, corruption in the old way, but rather a little bit. It's just not evil. You want to think about your anxiety and your frustration or your impatience like you're a computer running a corrupted file, and you just need to clean that up. And because it really does block how much you can do. Now, there are some very, very famous people who had all kinds of issues, but they usually had like a weirdly imbalanced life. They were reclusive, or they were isolated in their own wealth as well. If you heal your inner world, then your outer world will reflect that. And that is what we're talking about as well. And that is another affirmation that you can use. I have healed my inner world, and my outer world reflects that. And you say everything in threes. I have healed my inner world, and my outer world reflects that. I have healed my inner world, and my outer world reflects that. And there are a couple of things with, like, if you've done grievous wrong to other people, it's always a good idea to try and mitigate any karmic loads, which are lessons about the repercussions of the energy that we put out there. It doesn't have to be a direct thing. It's just in your intent. Meaning that, like, hey, if you had a boyfriend and, in the first year of college that you really did dirty, it doesn't mean you have to seek them out and be like, I'm so sorry, I've changed so much, I grew up, I had a lot of trauma. You don't have to do that. And by the way, I'm not actually like using an example from my own life there. It's just the things that people carry with them, the things that they're kind of hiding from. Is all you have to do is be different as you go forward towards others, and to have good intent. And that is one of the ways that we can make amends for any of the things that we did that were not our best moments, that come from a place of trauma, that come from a place of pain and disorder. So you put all of that into a healing view, and then you manifest with affirmations. And your affirmations are going to be very, very personal to you. You can write them down if you want. Scripting does work. I need you to have the proviso in mind that some of the techniques in the law of attraction are not good for people who have disordered thinking because it's compulsive. Writing the same thing down 55 times for 55 days is one of the things that you can do in scripting. That can be a very rigid energy and lock you into that cyclical compulsive energy that goes along with trauma. I think that using spoken affirmations and thought affirmations works better, in my experience, for people who are trying to overcome different forms of disorder. And it is because the tone, the cadence, the words will change with the day. I have woken up in the middle of the night and done some affirmations around things that I get up in the morning and I'll be like, this is going really well. I'll go back to sleep. I get up in the morning, I cannot remember a thing that I said in those affirmations. I just remember that there's a really positive energy around it. And that is why leaving it open that way instead of in a concrete form, in the written form, everything that we bring into existence has power over it. But you want to be a little bit careful with anything that can trigger you on a low or a subconscious level. Whenever I work with clients, I'm always sending them recordings to listen to in the morning and as they go to sleep, in order for them to begin programming their subconscious mind. And the hardest part of that entire journey is when we have to release the old repressed energy. We'll go back to the Aurelius Fictitious example of you did somebody dirty when you were a freshman in college. And that's a shame that you might be hiding from. But instead you can confront it and be like, yeah, I want to do differently going forward. It came from this, it came from that. I was trying to assuage an abandonment issues by being too controlling or whatever it might have been. Confronting yourself honestly is the thing that, and it doesn't have to be punishing. The things that you don't like about yourself are almost always trauma responses. Literally everybody has a divine soul within them. But what happens to them and the world around them, what it tells us to value, can really impact who someone grows into being. And it can also, they can have responses that they think are about what they wanted, but are actually known symptoms of various forms of trauma. And that is why psych spirituality can help so much. The things that hold you back, the things that you might be trying to overcome in your life, when you understand it from a more informed viewpoint, can set you free from them because you stop taking so much personal responsibility for it. Some of the things that I struggled with turned out to be very common symptoms of various forms of trauma. So I hope that made sense for you with affirmations and how to start using them, particularly as you wake up in the middle of the night, and then the first part of the day is the part that they're going to really be helpful with. This has been Logical Magic, Examining Esoterica. If you need to find me, you can find me at therisingmoon.com. I have a YouTube channel called Chromecast at the Rising Moon, where the video versions of this go up as well. And I also have a Patreon, where we're moving into teaching more and more manifestation techniques. I currently have something in my throat and I'm trying so hard not to cough. So willpower over here. But that's why I'm wrapping it up. If you have any, remember, you can get information from different sources and kind of make it fit for you. So seek out different sources, particularly if you've been trying to work on something and it hasn't come true yet. It means that the method you're learning might not have been right for you. Even though there are known and predictable responses from some things, you are still an individual. You still have an authentic self that, while part of a collective, has your unique viewpoint. And your unique viewpoint might resonate with and respond to different forms of teaching. And no one has all the answers for everybody. No one. Because of that unique individual energy that exists within. We are all one, but we have our own particular and singular view, which means that your techniques need to match your resonance within. If you have not been able to manifest, gather more information, but start with the recognition. I realize I am afraid, but I know I have a good track record. Kindly talking yourself through something rather than smashing it down with, because that was something I had to discover, both through personal experience, was that you cannot use affirmations to smother a feeling. Smothering is just repressing, and it will still be there. It will be stored in your subconscious mind, and that is why listening sometimes to some recordings, some subliminals, will help you release that subconscious energy. But you want to work with the programming of your subconscious mind. If you are prone to waking up in the middle of the night, the first technique, I'm not going to end this here because there's one more thing I want to add. If you are prone to waking up in the middle of the night, the first thing to do because it doesn't initially work for people to be like self-soothing, sing yourself a song that you like. Do that for a couple of weeks, and then the next time it starts happening, because you will no longer have a negative association, a fearful association with waking up in the middle of the night, you'll be able to soothe that part of you, because you'll wake up and a part of you is anticipating singing the show tune or whatever it was that helped pave the way towards relaxation for you. Your approach to waking up in the middle of the night has changed. If you wake up with that emotion, you're going to already be in the emotional flow of something positive, which will allow you to be soothing towards that emotion. And then once you're soothing towards that, then you work with, what are you trying to make out of this world? And the best time for affirmations is first thing in the morning while you're still in bed, while your snooze alarm is going. That's the first time to start running that reel, or when you wake up in the middle of the night. But again, you can't jump to the affirmations of, this is when I'm manifesting. Money flows to me easily, money flows to me fast, money flows to me quickly, and when it comes, it lasts. Might be another way of, you can make up these little ditties in your head that are forms of affirmations for manifestations. But you have to be in the positive energy of experiencing the love of the universe and the love of self. So that's where the self-soothing comes in. And again, if you can't do it yet, you sing yourself a song first. And it works like a charm. It really does work like a charm. Some of these things feel odd to do. Give it a shot. The absolute worst that happens is it doesn't work for you, and then you go and you look for a different answer. But if you are still struggling with being able to work with the concept of attracting the energy that you want, then you need, and you've done all the studying, you've had a spiritual teacher, you need to find another source as well. Start expanding your viewpoint. Whenever you're stuck, expand. Whenever you're stuck, expand. Expand. Expand your knowledge base, and you will be expanding your energy for manifestation as well. That is another tip for affirmations and manifestations. Keep learning. Keep learning about this world. Keep learning about your own world. If you're trying to manifest a house, if you're trying to manifest a cruise, sit there and look through itineraries, look at real estate listings. And again, don't get your heart set on a particular thing. Recognize the kitchen you like, the view you like, the dishwasher you like, but just what you're doing is programming these images into your mind, again, for the things that you can manifest in an outward fashion. I hope you found that helpful. It's mostly about trying to overcome the fear that we all have in uncertain times through a method of, again, self-soothing, and then we move towards the affirmations that form the foundation. They form a foundation for your manifestations to be built upon. And they're very, 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 very important. Again, scripting can trip some people out who have OCD, who are prone to anxiety, who are prone to doing the same things over and over again, which trauma survivors often are as they seek emotional safety. I hope you found this helpful, and this time I'm really ending it because I'm not going to cough any longer. It was really good to talk to you guys again. Thank you for joining me.